Khan, all praise to the Most High. Hey, shalom, 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 Israel. Yahweh Bashimi Shabbat. I'm Soldier Kazak with Sons of Zion Houston, along with
Soldier Custody with Sons of Zion Houston. Shalom.
Khan and Brother Karatazar with Sons of Zion Houston.
all praise to the Most High. Hey, welcome to another episode of Faith by Works, where we study a commandment week in and week out to further edify and perfect our walks with the Most High God, loving Him in deed and in truth, man. So often, so many times, we with godly discourse, we build with our people in the highways and hedges, and when we talk with them, right, we ask them, hey, just to see where you at, how many commandments do you know just off the top of your head? They can give us roughly 3, maybe 4, right? Which is understandable because our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge and we've been manipulated and misguided. But we've created this series on the platform of Sons of Zion Milk to increase their knowledge in that aspect, man. So, it's important that we love the Most High God with action, and this is where we teach it, right? So the title of today's lesson is Cultivate Thy Seed. Cultivate Thy Seed, right? So we have children. A lot of us have beautiful, beautiful children, right? Boys, girls. Hey, we just celebrated our praise to the Most High God, another Feast of Purim, right? And Feast of Purim, we had to set up the snow cone machine. We set up, the bounce house for the kids. And I was just sitting there and it brought tears to my eyes, man, how beautiful this camp is, man. How huge this camp has become, right? And I thought about this. Hey, it's very, very important that we teach these kids and we bring them up, right? The way the Most High God wants us to bring them up in righteousness, man. To create, the voice in the back of their head that's going to, promote that integrity, right? So that they can not depart from this heritage, right? So we're gonna go ahead and kick it off with the book of Colossians, chapter 3 and verse 17. And it reads, and whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai, giving thanks to Yahweh, the Father, by him. So everything that we do is by Hashem Yahweh Shai. And this week, right, in the name of the Lord, right, we want to encourage every brother and sister, right, to teach their households in order and to actually, cultivate thy seed, man. Teach thy children the law, statutes, and commandments. Teach, all right, your children, what is the Most High God's name? What is his son's name? Hey, what do you have to do to get the kingdom of heaven? These basic fundamental things is very, very critical to teach to our children so that they know, right? So that they will never be confounded. So they will never be put in a bind where they don't know how to deal, right? So everything, like I said, is done, right, in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shai. Not in our own names, right? Not in not to, for a name, uh for all self-glorification in any way, shape, or form. We do this to glorify our Lord, right? And Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, who the word ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. This is the book of James, chapter 2, and verse 14. What does it profit, my brethren, though a man say he hath faith and have not works? Can faith save him? So simply prophesying with your lips, hey, I believe in Lord, right? We often come in contact with this as well in the highways and hedges. Yeah, I know God. I read my Bible. I pray every day. Well, is this, sufficient enough? Verse 17, it says, even so, faith, if it had not works, is dead, being alone. Ye a man say, thou hast faith and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. So you show forth your fear, your reverence, right? Your love for the Most High God with your works, with your actions, right? A lot of us can definitely understand this on a more secular, carnal level, in a sense where that actions are required in order to join a football team and stay on a football team, right? To join a chess club and be successful in that chess club, right? When you want to join any type of organization, you understand that there's rules and regulations, right? You have to hold up a certain end of the bargain in order to stay a part of that group, a part of that organization, right? Well, in order to get the kingdom, right? In order to, have that relationship with the Most High God, there's actions that has to be taking place. And that's keeping the commandments and walking in righteousness and having faith that he exists, right? So simply saying it with your lips is not enough, right? You actually have to prove your actual love for him by your works and your actions, right? This is the book of First John chapter 3 and verse 18. It says, "My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth," right? So that's very, very important. So the commandment of the week is what? Cultivating thy seed, teaching our children, passing on the knowledge and the wisdom to your offspring, right? So let's go here real quick. I got the book of Sirach, chapter 17, and verse number 11. And it says, "Besides this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for an heritage. He made an everlasting covenant with them and showed them his judgments," right? So these commandments, these laws, these statutes, and these judgments, hey, this is the way we're supposed to live. You understand? We have feast days to keep, things to celebrate, right? Is laws in regards to cleanliness, right? And defiling yourself, the way you're supposed to eat, the way you're supposed to think, the way you're supposed to speak. This is our heritage. This is how we recognize ourselves as far as identification goes, right? This is how the other nations spot us and see us in a different way, right? Let's actually get there, right? This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4, and I'm going to start at verse 5. It says, "What? Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither I go to possess it." It says, "Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people." So this is what sets us apart, right? This is how we are different from the so-called Chinese man, the so-called white man, the so-called Indian man, Pakistani man, right? It's because we are seen, we are heard, right? And we think different. All right. We already see the distinction now, right? How we dominate everything we touch. But surely we are oppressed and surely we are, made desolate because we've been discontinued from it and we no longer prioritize the law, statutes, and commandments. You understand? Uh so let's get this commandment, right? The commandment of the week. Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 6. It says, "And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when you riseth up." Right? So consistently, when you get up, when you lay down, when you're chilling and you're talking in your household, right? You are supposed to diligently teach these things to your children, right? And it starts off by teaching them, hey, every day you wake up, I want you to get in the routine of making your bed, brushing your teeth, washing your face, all right, and coming down and nice and clean and everything, getting ready for breakfast. That's one example. You understand? Every day I want you to tell me one thing that you learned from the lesson previously, right? Or let's go over the things of the children's class that's held on Saturdays, right? Let's go over these things, getting them in a routine. You understand? Hey, this is how it begins. This is how you teach them diligently the law, statutes, commandment, teach an order and enforce an order. You understand? One precept, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Casadia, right? Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 6. It says, "What? Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." So you understand, when you start them off in order, you create that conscience in their mind. You create that integrity, right? Ultimately, we understand that the Lord gives this, but what you do as the parent, as the father, right, is you enhance that, if you will, right? He understands, along with looking down at those fringes, hey, I can't do this. I'm an Israelite. What will my father think? What would the Lord do to me? Considering the fact that I know the commandments in this regard. You understand? So that voice in the back of your head is being placed very, very set in stone when you cultivate that seed and when you start them off right and when you're steady having these talks, right? I tell this to my wife all the time, as well as the brothers in the camp. A lot of the reasons why I'm afraid to go off and make mistakes is because of all of those talks that my dad sat me down and talked with me, about. You know what I'm saying? We had many, many conversations. Hey, you understand, when you do this, this may happen. There's consequences to this type of activity. All right. When it gets late, hey, after 12 midnight, cats gonna be doing donuts. They're gonna be racing through the parking lot and everything. Keep your nose clean. Remember, all it takes is one mistake, and then hey, you screwed up. When you get you a record, it's that much harder to get a job and take care of your family. These type of talks took place early on in the childhood. You understand? And it created that conscience in the back of your head. Helped me to further serve the Lord indeed and in truth. Right? But I'm gonna go ahead and yield there. You got it, Brother Kasadi.
Mighty opening, King. Hey, so like the brother was expounding on, it's of high importance, not only for us as individual parents, for our children, but for building a nation, right? But the first thing that we have to have in mind is the fact that your children are one of the most prized and beautiful possessions and blessings that the Most High has given us, right? This is the book of Psalms, chapter 127, verse 3. It says, "Lo, children are an heritage of the Most High, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate." Right? So understand that the Most High God blessed you with these children, right? And you have to be able to cherish these children. And how do you cherish your child more than teaching them the right way to go, that he may have a sustaining, fulfilling life, right? And it's not just when we think about carnal things like teaching them to go to college and get a good job and find a good woman, this, that, and the third. But teaching him the ways of the Most High, that he may have the Most High always as his refuge. And he may have the Most High always on his thoughts and on his mind and as frontlets of his eyes, that he may teach it to the next generation. And when we all do that as a people, that becomes, again, Israel building itself back up through the power of the Most High, obviously, right? I'm going to get that same law in Deuteronomy, but I want to get it in Deuteronomy chapter 11, because I like the way that reads. Speaking of children, mine over here making noise right now. Say shalom. Hey, it's shalom. You don't want to say nothing. This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 11 and verse. Oh, now you want to say it. This is the book of Deuteronomy chapter 11 and verse 18. It says, "Therefore shall ye lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes. And ye shall teach them to your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." Right? So one of the most important things we have to understand as a parent, right, is the easiest way to teach your children is leading them by example, right? And the best way to be an example of the walk that the Most High wants us to be on is to always constantly meditate on his word, always constantly meditate on his laws, statutes, and commandments, because that's our lifeline. That's our lifeblood, first and foremost, right? They'll never understand it. They'll never get it. They'll never see the importance of it until they see the importance of it in us, right? We have to always make sure we're walking what we're teaching them, right? Because we can tell them anything till we're blue in the face. I could tell my son all day. Well, he's young right now, but when he gets older, I can tell him all day, hey, you need to pray 3 times a day. When you wake up, in the middle of the day, before you go to bed. But if he doesn't see me doing these things, right, you really think he's going to take that to heart? You really think he's going to look at that and be like, you know what, that's highly important, what he's telling me to do? I'm going to do that, because if I don't, I'm just not going to feel right. Right? No. If he doesn't see me doing these things, then he's not going to value those things. So first and foremost, in order to teach your children, you have to first be not a hypocrite in your own household, right? This is the book of Psalm, chapter 119. I'm starting verse 92, right? It says, unless thy law had been my delights, I should then have perished in mine affliction. I will never forget thy precepts, for with them thou hast quickened me. I am thine. Save me, for I have sought thy precepts. Right? So we have to first seek these precepts first, seek these laws, seek the words of the Most High God first. Right? And we have to understand that we have little eyes watching us at all times. Right? They repeat what you say. These little parakeets is what I call them. Right? They little mini me's. They monkey see, monkey do. Right? At the end of the day, what we're doing, where our mind is set, right? As Yahweh Shai says, set up your treasures in heaven, right? Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, right? Where your heart is, that's where your treasure will be also, right? Where your children will see where your treasure is real quick, whether you realize it or not. So how important is it to make sure that first and foremost, you're walking in that diligence, and you're walking in that faith, and you're walking in that spiritual reverence to the Most High God that you're trying to impart on them? Because Slacky, he was making noise. Because at the end, at the end of the day, the importance that it has to you is going to be the importance that it has to them. I'm gonna get one more precept and pass it so I can go check on this little dude. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, and verse 26. It says, "In the fear of the Most High is strong confidence, and his children shall have a place of refuge." Right. So, in loving your children, right, you and wanting them to have that place of refuge, wanting them to find that rock, that strong tower, as you have found, you have to show them how important that thing is through what your actions, leading through example. Right. And with that, I yield.
Colin, all praises to Most High. You know, those are very, very great points, especially when it comes down to handling what the Most High loves us, which is His children. So, if we're the children of the Most High and we're the parents, then the children of the children is also the children of the Most High, right? So we got to make sure that we hold the same exact example, like the brother was saying, in reverence, right? So, but how do we do that? And also show forth that this is something that should be desired as something that is beneficial to your spirit, beneficial to your upbringing, or even disrespectful to your parents, right? And how does it reflect that this is absolute love towards your child, right? We'll go to the book of 1 Peter 2:2. This is how we try to kind of have to conduct ourselves as the example so they can receive the way we receive, right? It says, "As newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby." So one of the most important things to have when you have children is understanding the nutritional importance of their growth and development, right? And what is that when it comes down to a spiritual development? That's the word of the Most High God. That's the law, statutes, and commandments, and the ordinances, right? That's the discipline, the chastening, and the love and rebuke. Because we know that in so many forms or fashion that the Lord has declared to us what love looks like in the scriptures, right? And if you say that you love your child, then you would have to learn how to not only just show him soft things, you also have to show him the balance of those things so he understands, hey, not to go left or not to go right, and how to walk in a straight line, right? And it's so important to understand simply that, you know, it's something that we gotta to show them, like the sincere milk, right? Like when a baby gets milk, how do they feel when they look at the mother when they're taking that milk from the breast? They look hopeful, they look soft, they look comfortable, they look satisfied, they look nurtured, they look as if they completely depend on the growth and the development of the wisdom that is making them grow to a larger state of adolescence, right? And eventually, after they grow out of that stage, they will become adults, but still they'll always be your children. And they'll be raised to a point where, as they're still being your children as adults, they still know how to be respectful. So just as we grew as children to adult, we know how to honor and reverence the Most High God in that same mindset, in that same spirit, right? I'm gonna go to the book of Psalms 34 and start with verse number 8. Just like we're talking about the sincere milk of the wisdom that we're supposed to teach to our children. It says, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. Oh, fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. The young lions do lack and suffer hunger," right? Because when you're young, you don't really have a stable environment yet. You still have that ability that you got to search and find, and when you're looking for wisdom and you're looking to grow, there's been many things by the wayside that you could either become malnutrition by, or there's things that you can take upon yourself and eat that you can take in that will make you grow like a big and strong, right? But they that seek the Lord shall not want any good thing. Come, ye children, hearken unto me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. So one of the first things as a child is to learn, you kind of instill that fear into your children so they can stay in a sense of obedience to you, so they can hearken to your words and follow your guidance. And they do it not just out of a fear of destruction, but out of a fear of disappointment, out of a fear of not being able to meet the expectations that were taught to them, and that they know that they're measuring short behind because they're choosing to do something of their own volition, right? Which could be going against the commandments, just like the Lord said, we fall short daily because sometimes you can't help it. But if you're touching your kid, hey, I laid these criteria down. When you go to somebody's house, hey, be mindful of that. Play nice. Or hey, wash your hands. Say yes, sir. No, sir. These are things that you teach your child as forms of milk, just like the commandments. Because guess what? Even look, I'm gonna go to the book of Proverbs 20 and 11. It says, "Even a child is known by his doings, whether his works be pure and whether it be right." So when you have a child that you're bringing up, they're going to be also looked upon for who they are, right? It's going to go into a reflection of where they come from, but it's also going to be held to that child. You're not going to be able to negate the thoughts and the judgments that come with that child, because now you're going to be like, hey, I got to watch that child. That child right there, he doesn't respect my household. This child right here, he's harming the little kids. He doesn't understand how to, be considerate versus being self-focused, which would compromise the youngers that they're interacting with, right? It may compromise your property at your house, or just your reputation and your name as a parent, because it's going to go forth. And so, hey, if the child has not good fruits, what tree did it fall from? And then it's not only going to be a reflection on the child, it's going to be ultimately a reflection on you. But what did the Lord say? If you love him, hey, you chasten your children, right? Because this is Proverbs 19 and 18. It says, "Chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not the soul spare for his crying," right? Because there's certain things that people would do or will not do with their children because they're afraid to make their kids cry or make their kids unhappy, or it's going to hurt their little feelings. But you got to make sure that you're instilling these values before they get to and I'm not talking about 18. I'm not talking about 15, where they're like, oh, no, it starts right after 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. This is where these understandings are ingrained into a child, to know what he can and can't do in his household, how far he can and can't go, depending on how his parent is going to manage him or manage her, right? These are the positions of the start points for bad character development or good spiritual character development, because they're going to look and say, hey, you know what? I never got in trouble. So when somebody tells me sit down or do this, I don't fear that. I'm going to do me. And then you're going to have the parent, well, I would discipline them, but I don't want to make them cry. I just talk to them. The Lord didn't say talk. What did the Lord say in the book of Revelation 3 and 19? He said, as many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. So be excited about getting disciplined by the Most High, because that shows that he loves you, just like your children. Be zealous to make sure that you chasten your children, because that shows how much you love them, right? And that will make them what? Repent. If they getting chastised for doing something against your will and your commandment of your house, they're gonna repent. They're gonna think about that. But man, I don't want to disappoint. I don't want another whooping. I don't want to have to go through this negative experience because I know I didn't listen. But ultimately, it's not just about the force you apply. It's the love that you apply with it, because it's not a good thing to. It doesn't feel great to a loving parent to see your child crying based off of any reason. But hey, like you saying back in the day, this is gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you, right? But this is how you start to teach the fear of the Lord, right? I'm gonna got one more precept, and then two more precepts, and I'm gonna pass it back, because it's so important for you to understand that we gotta teach these things to our children, because this is how the Most High is looking at us and our generations to come. This is the book of Psalms 132 and 12. And it says what? If thy children will keep my covenant and my testimonies that I shall teach them, their children shall also sit upon thy throne forevermore. And when you don't have that type of behavior and development and that consistency, and it goes not just for your own individual like household. This is like my brothers was bringing up. This is for a nation-based understanding. If every parent is teaching their children the ways and the commandments and the testimonies of the Most High God, how do you think that we're going to continue to sit on the throne of this earth, or have the throne that the Lord wants to provide for us and bring us back to a rulership type of status in the earth? It all starts with what? Love by rebuking thy neighbor, which is first your neighbor. Your first neighbor is going to be your children. How do you think we're going to get to that great estate to sit upon the throne? And once we pass on as parents, that our children are left to teach that to their children. That's how you keep a throne, a kingdom, a dominion, right? And if you don't go as a parent to do these things, to teach these things, then what does the Lord look at you like? This is the one, my last one, that I'm going to pass it right here. This is Matthew 5:19. Whosoever thou shalt break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. That includes your children. That's just not on the highways and hedges. That's not just for, the views, the clicks, just to look in the sense of another brother to rebuke or another sister to be able to rebuke. These are things you got to understand. Whoso offendeth a little one, it shall be that you hang a great millstone upon thy neck. That's if you spoil the children, man. You got to think about that in that aspect too, because these are going to be the ones that come up and to supposed to teach and continue the ways to not have us to serve other gods and other idols, and to teach the continual love and cycle of us being servants and repentant and the Most High's children, his inheritance. So if we don't do that, and you don't teach your children to do these commandments, you can teach the whole world these things. You can go to the highways and say, brother, you going off smoking that blunt right there. Sister, man, you going off putting that clothes on. Son, quit kicking everything. You know what? Here's some candy. Go sit down. Who did you just more destroy? The future that did you take away the hope of the children? Or did you're more mad and condemning those who are adults that grew without it, versus you learning and knowing the truth and spoiling them at the root, right? I'm gonna finish this off, and it says, whosoever therefore shall break one of the least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. So you're putting your family in the lowest estate in the kingdom to come, because you refuse to teach the commandments, maybe because you're not the example, you're not living the example that you need to teach. So it's hard to teach a child to be better when you don't teach yourself as a parent to be better, right? But them, the same that shall be, it said, but whoever shall do them and teach them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. That includes your children. You teach your children how to love the Lord, how to love their people, how to honor and keep the sincere milk of these commandments. Those kids are going to grow to be fine, strong cedars, right? And with that, I yield.
A lot of mighty points, man, by both brothers, right? So one thing that that brother Casadia was bringing out was being that example, right? We always have eyes watching, and then Karatazar is bringing out how important it is that you give them the sincere milk, right? Teaching them the fundamental things, right, and making sure you don't neglect chastisement and discipline, right? So with both of those really hand in hand worked with and made me think about was how important it is to teach them the history, right? Because when you know the history of our people and you're teaching your child the history of our people, you see how the Most High God gives us cause and effect, right? When you look at Deuteronomy 28, verse 1, he says, guess what? I'm going to reward you, I'm going to love you, and I'm going to give you everything you so forth would desire to have if you keep my commandments and diligently seek me. Deuteronomy 28, verse 1. Then when you look at on the flip side, Deuteronomy 28, verse 15, it's important that we show our kids that, hey, if you don't do what I tell you to do, there's going to be cursing, right? In other words, I'm going to whoop you, okay? That's what Karatazar was bringing out. And being that example, hey, we have the example. Look how the Most High God treated us historically, right? Let's go to it, right? I'm going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 7, and I'm going to start at verse 6. Right? It says what? For thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. Hey, we are the most like him. We are his children. We are just like our father. Right? It says what? The Lord thy God has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Right? So we have that distinction. Right? We see how we are the apple of the Most High God's eye. Right? And it says, what? The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were in number than few in number than any people, but for ye the fewest of all people, but because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers. Had the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Right there, we have a very beautiful gem in history, right? Where the Most High God, right, is chastising us and giving us that rod of correction by putting us in subjection to Pharaoh, right? Because we didn't listen to him, because we didn't keep his commands, because you didn't do what I told you to do, right? He gave us the rod of correction by giving us unto slavery, unto the hands of Pharaoh, right? So it's just like a very small. It's that's the big example, and then you have on a smaller level us like what Brother Karatazar was saying. Hey, look, stop throwing temper tantrums, stop tearing up stuff. You understand? And when you give him candy and you neglect that rod of correction, they don't learn. But with the rod of correction with the Most High God, we learn how important it is to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, or else we will be enslaved, or else we will go through plagues, diseases, right? Or we'll be killed off. We will be unsuccessful in battle, right? In war. So many different things as the effect where the cause is disobedience. You understand? So right here, historically, in Deuteronomy 28 and Deuteronomy 7, we see the relationship that we have with the Most High God, and we see the cause and effect that He, time and time again, gives us throughout the Old Testament on how important it is for us to do what He says to do. You understand? And we have to do what? Be that example, right? And that example is the Most High God and what He's done for us, how He's shown mercy, how He's given us that balance, right? So on and so forth, right? And it creates that integrity that I was building on earlier, right? When you actually teach these things diligently unto thy children, when you show them the history, when you show them the basic fundamentals, the laws, the statutes, and commandments, it creates that integrity of right from wrong, right? When the devil is tempting them, they know how to go right and not go left, right? This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 20 and verse 7. The just man walketh in his integrity, his children are blessed after him, right? So when you teach these things, they will be blessed from generation to generation as time elapses because they have their voice in their mind, right? They're steady in tune with their heritage of the law of God. This is the book of Proverbs 11 and verse 3. The integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. You understand? So you'll be likened unto a city without walls, right? When you have no order, when you're not teaching that order unto your children. You have all these bad kids running around with no order. You understand? Because you're not teaching them. And then what I'll do is get this last one in the NLT, right? 2 Corinthians 4 and I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, therefore, since God in his mercy has given us this new way, we never give up. We reject all shameful deeds and underhanded methods. So we reject and we rebuke all of the craftiness, if you will, all of the sneakiness, right? And we make that cognitive decision, right, to walk in righteousness. Reading on, it says, we don't try to trick anyone or distort the word of God. So as this people that understand this truth, we know not to, we know Leviticus 19 and verse 11. You see how it goes hand in hand? The law is Leviticus 19 and 11. And we understand that this is our integrity. I got to always be honest with my brother. Treat him as if I'm treated. You understand? Reading on, it says what? We tell the truth before God, and all who are honest know this. If the good news we preach is hidden behind a veil, it is hidden only from people who are perishing. Satan, who is the God of this world, has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. Right? So we've been discontinued, right? Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 4. But we have to be that example as Brother Casadia was bringing up, right? And then we encourage our children and teach our children to be the example as well. You understand? How they are supposed to walk, right? Titus chapter 2 and verse 4 on down. It says, well, Satan is the God of this world and has blinded the minds of those who don't believe. They are unable to see the glorious light of the good news. They don't understand this message about the glory of Christ, who is exact likeness of God. You see, we don't go around preaching about ourselves. We preach that Jesus Christ is Lord, and we ourselves are servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, let there be light in the darkness, has made this light shine in our hearts so we can know the glory of God that is seen in the face of Jesus Christ. So we have to be forth that example, right? And use our integrity to teach others, show them the light, right? Because we understand the wicked devices and the wiles of the so-called white man today has blinded our people in understanding that we are God's chosen people, that we're supposed to move a certain way. We're supposed to eat a certain way and think a certain way. So when you teach the importance of teaching your children, they'll be an example to their neighbor. And it's what it's doing is correcting generations and generations and generations to come. You understand? So it all works hand in hand. Being an example and making sure that you don't neglect, right, that chastisement, that correction, right? Because you don't want to see them cry. Or I can't whoop him. I can't hurt his. I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to yell at him and hurt. Look, what you're doing. Let's matter of fact, let me get there real quick. Because I was holding it earlier when Brother Karatazar was bringing it out. In the NLT, we're gonna get Proverbs 13 and verse 24, and then I'm gonna pass it. It says, "Those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them." Hey, you have to think about it like this, man. If you don't discipline them, you don't correct them because you're afraid of them crying, or you're afraid of hurting their feelings, or you don't want to you don't like the thought of hitting them and then them crying and you inflicting that pain. Hey, would you rather do it, or do you want the so-called white man to do it with a badge on his chest? You have to make that decision. Do you want the cops to do it, or do you want to do it and correct it and do it now underneath your household? So you have to really focus on the outcome. That's what you have to focus on. Think about them later on down the line. Because when he turns 16 and 17, you see how it's going to be more and more difficult, okay, to give him that correction and to make sure he has that integrity and that conscience, that voice in the back of his head. So do it early and make sure that you don't neglect that rod of correction, because the Most High God commands you to do so. I yield, Doug.
God, King, that's the spirit. Like you say, you want to do it early, because what's that old saying that they have in the world? You can't teach an old dog what new tricks, right? So you teach these children early. One of the most fascinating things I find about kids is just how malleable their minds are, right? You can teach a small child multiple languages faster than you can teach a grown adult, right? You can teach, I say my son, for instance, is 2. By the time he turns 5, if I start teaching him how to play the guitar, he'll be better than me by the age of 7, right? That's how malleable a child's mind is. So it's of high importance that we start instructing them when they're young, right? That way, when they grow, as the book of Proverbs 22:6 says, they won't depart from the things that we instruct them, right? This is the book of Sirach, chapter 7, and verse 23. It says, "Hast thou children? Instruct them, and bow down their necks from their youth. Hast thou daughters? Have a care of their body, and show not thyself cheerful toward them." Right? So it's of high importance that as early as possible, you start teaching your children. And a lot of people, especially Jake and Eve in the world, they have that spirit of, you can't tell my child nothing. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't correct my child. This, that, and the third. Well, these children grow up to be little aliens at the end of the day, right? And that's something that you don't want. Again, we're building a nation, right? And like the brother Karatas I was bringing out, right? For those who shall break the least of these commandments and teach men so, they shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven, right? Well, you're known by what your children are. And your children, we use this word in the world, are your legacy. Right? Butterfly kite, that's right. These children are your legacy, right? It's the book of Sirach, chapter 11, verse 28. It says, "Judge none blessed before his death, for a man shall be known in his children," right? Your child is a direct reflection of you, a direct reflection of your values, and a direct reflection of the way that you walk here on this earth, right? Like Kazak opened up with mightily. The way that I move, me personally, it's a direct reflection of all of the knowledge that my own father taught me, that he instilled with me when he was here on this earth, right? And these are things that, I mean, some are unprofitable, but for the vast majority of it, these are things that are profitable and that have kept me out of a lot of trouble, have kept me from going down destructive paths, right? Not only destructive towards myself, but destructive to my community, right? This is what should always be on the frontlets of our minds when it comes to raising up our children. How do we want them to be in society when they grow up? What kind of reflection do we want them to have on us, right? What do we want people to see when they look at our children? Is it the same that we want them to see when they look at us, right? A lot of, like I say, Jake and Eve, a lot of them want their children to be seen as some type of prosperous individuals when it comes to lucre or some type of material wealth or status, but nobody takes the time to think about, okay, well, how is my child looked at in his character? How is my child looked at spiritually? Is my child a little hellion that just happens to be rich and famous? Or is he somebody that's putting forth his hand to the plow in order to further his people? Is he somebody that's given to the needy, not just physical things, but spiritual things? Is he somebody that's willing to pick up his brother when his brother is down, pick up his sister when his sister is down? Or is he somebody that's going to cheat them, right, when he sees an opportune situation, right? These are all things that we have to make sure we are looking at. These are all things that we have to have a high esteem for, because they're looking at us, right? And let me get the book of Tobit, chapter 13 and verse 13. It says, "Rejoice and be glad for the children of the just, for they shall be gathered together and shall bless the Lord of the just." Right? So the Most High is first and foremost, he's just. But when we look at raising our children, and I don't mean but when we look at raising our children, We want to make sure that our children are rejoicing in that type of mindset and rejoicing in the ways of the just, not rejoicing in the ways of folly, because folly is setting great dignity in this world. And they have a lot of snares already, right? That we have to prepare them for. You sneezing hard? Come here. They have a lot of folly. They have a lot of snares that are out here trying to sift our children out as much as possible, and they're doing it young, right? They put little sneaky subliminal messages in the cartoons, right? That teach them to have sexual urges young, right? That teach them to desire drugs young and alcohol young, right? How much more should we be that the defense and that fortress, right, to show our children, hey, those things are wrong, right? The ways of the Lord are righteous and pure. All right, let's get back to Psalm 119 real quick. So I had a little bit more on that. Right. This is book of Psalm, chapter 119. And I'll start at 101. It says, I have refrained my feet from every evil way, that I might keep thy word. I have not departed from thy judgments, for thou hast taught me, right? How sweet are thy words unto my taste, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Through thy precepts, I get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way, right? And we want our children to hate every false way. So we have to make sure that we're teaching them diligently the same way the Most High God taught us, right? And even more so because brothers here, right? We learn these things in our ripe old age, right? So how much more mightier would our children be learning these things from their youth up, right? Learning that the ways of the world are wicked from their youth up, and not just in the manner that the Christian church teaches, in the manner that those that are in the truth would know, because we have these precepts, right? So they're going to hate every false way. They're going to have that understanding that the ways of the world are the ways of death, right? They're going to have that knowledge of the truth, and they're going to walk up in, I would say, newness of life, but this will be their life. They'll walk up as free people, right? Again, it's all about kingdom building, and that mindset has to start with what? Setting your own house in order, right? Making sure your children are diligent and studied in his word, making sure that your children are raised up with shamefacedness and fear of the Most High God, right? Because at the end of the day, if we want our people to be better, it starts with our people who we're raising that are coming from our loins, right? And with that, I yield.
Con, beautiful points by both brothers, man. You know, they're bringing forth true wisdom and understanding of, you know, how and where it starts to raise your children with the spirit of the Lord within them, right? But ultimately, we got to also tackle the factor that in order to raise the children in the right order, we got to make sure that we are as parents in the right order, right? Because that's going to be the structure to your child's development, is going to be the household, right? So let's get the understanding that your child's looking at the environment. So that means that he's looking at just not his toys. That means he's looking at the family dynamics, the structure of that. So if, let's say, your child is looking and you're, you know, the father, and let's say the mother's out of order, disrespecting the husband, doing what she wants, and then the father goes to correct, and then it causes chaos, and the child is observing these things. So what happens when the father goes to the child to correct? Do you think that behavior is going to replicate? These are things that you got to understand, that in order to have a household of the Most High, it starts with the top, the parents. They have to be in their roles. They got to be comfortable being father. Father has these expected behaviors. A mother, she has these expected behaviors, because that's where the order of your household and your love for the Most High is going to start. Is with, are you understanding your responsibilities as that parent? It's different. It's a different thing to say that you've had children than to say that I'm a parent, that I'm a father, that I have a household. Because anybody can dwell together, but what happens when the order is destroyed or not available? You don't have a household, you have a residence. meaning that people reside there, right? And then without the order, how can you have family structure, right? So let's look at the basic understandings of this. Just because in order to teach your children, you got to know, hey, I know I'm gonna tell my children what to do, but I don't know how to be a parent. I don't know how to be a husband. I don't know how to be a wife. So how can I be a parent if I don't know what my role is to do as who I am under the umbrella of the Most High God, right? So let's just go to the basics. I don't want to say basics, no sense of insulting, just because we teach these things quite often. So let's start with understanding. So in order to become great parents, you have to become great children of the Most High. You got to become a great husband and wife. That's going to be the first foundation of the development of your children, is how is your household being handled between each other, because a broken home can create broken children, right? So this is what the Lord says in 1 Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. So that means there's a hierarchy at home. When daddy comes home, guess what? He's the ruler of the household. The mother should reverence her husband to have that good example. Hey, this is how you're supposed to treat your father's children, right? Because it starts with her, because she's the first form of nurturing to the children. So if she's going to show forth a hate or disdain towards her husband, naturally that's going to be the example that they think that they should learn to have for their father. So that's where you have poor spiritual development, because it starts from the order that's set in the home, right? And if your woman doesn't want to respect you as a husband, as a father, how's she going to teach your children to do such? She might start saying slight things to them. Oh, man, don't be like your daddy. You know what? Man, I hate when you know what you start. That's where that disorder and that hate comes into the development of your children, which would what start to breed a form of rebelliousness in your child. And that's against the law for us to even want that in our children in the first place, because there's heavy consequences to stuff like that. But when you create and you spoil the child by sparing the rod, you're telling your child, like brother was bringing out, that you hate your children, right? You don't love the Most High God. What's one of the, how do we know that we love the Most High God? By loving the children of his people. For this is the love of God, that we love God and keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. So in order to even say that you love the Most High God, you got to first learn to love your children or your people, right? Your children are the people of the Most High God, right? So if you have an order in your household, the father teaches the mother the household and holds the boundaries and sets down the structure and the laws of the Most High God. He is the law enforcer, the hand of judgment, correction, and guidance. Because all of that shows forth what? That he loves his household, right? Because the book of Leviticus 19:17 says what? Let me just grab that. Because people will say, well, harsh correction, or, when you would know, what kid loves to get a whooping? What person likes to get corrected and say, oh, that felt so good? So when you're emotional and you're not in the right spirit, you won't understand chastening. You won't respect chastening. You won't say, man, I know I didn't deserve that, and I deserve to get that whooping. Oh, I know I didn't respect him, so I got that tongue lashing. These are things that you do because you're thinking of the household. You're thinking of somebody outside of yourself. When you only think about yourself, you only care about how you feel, no matter what you've done. And that's called a high form of rebelliousness. And if you don't receive that correction, you become stubborn. The Lord likens those two things to witchcraft and idolatry. And that would be teaching your children to start performing idolatries and witchcraft, because you're teaching them to be so concerned about how they feel, and at the expense of what they need to be doing. So you're worshiping yourself, and then you're casting this negativity of rebelliousness into your household. But Leviticus 19:17 says, Salaki, that thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Like the brother said, if you don't chasten your kids, you hate them. So if you're gonna love your children and you're not gonna break the commandment, you're gonna have to get with them and correct them, and they're not gonna like it. But as an ordered household, the man is the head of the woman is the head of the children. I have to instill what the Lord expects, which is what? Correction, because that's what the Lord says is what? Love. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon them. I can't suffer sin upon my children. I can't suffer sin upon my household. That would be something I have to be responsible for as the head and the lead, right? And if I don't teach my household the words of the Most High God, if I don't teach my wife her order into the household of the Most High God, we're the sons of the Most High God, right? She would have to understand this in Titus 2. The brother slightly tapped on it. What? Titus 2 and 3, right? But let's start with just 1, and we're just going to go down to 4. But speak thou these things which become sound doctrine. So this is the sound doctrine of raising your household, meaning that your parents are in order and the children in order. This is sound doctrine. This is what is needed to be done in order for us to be a thriving nation that is orderly and set on the throne of the Most High. That's like he said, those children that have learned that he can teach his commandments and his ways to, that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, and in patience. So, as a man, you gotta be patient. You got to understand that doesn't mean you're not reactive. You just let things slide. That means you tolerate enough until you have to lay down the order, right? You have charity, you have sound and faith, meaning that, hey, you're confident in what the Lord taught us to do, to rebuke and to keep order in the household and as a nation. These are not things that are meant to intemperate and grave, meaning considerate and cautious and fearful of things against the Most High God, despite how somebody in the household might feel, and despite your kid throwing a tantrum, despite your wife not liking to have to be in order to chasten the children or to show forth good works towards you as a man that reverence, so it can teach good behavior to them. Versus, I feel like I don't like. Then you don't love your children because you care more about your feelings than what you're bringing up behind you. Because it can't be. If you have children, it's no longer about you. It's about the upbringing of the prize inheritance of your husband and your family and of the Most High God. These are things that should be understood, because if you don't do these things, the Lord has easily declared a couple examples to show you for what will come from not being ordered and not trying to be following the instruction that the Lord gave us to thrive and show forth our wisdom and understanding, like the brother brought out in Deuteronomy 4. This is going to be the outcome. This is Isaiah 3 and 12. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, that they which lead thee cause thee to err and destroy the ways of thy path. So if you don't teach them with understanding, you're going to destroy their paths. You're not going to be able to say, I brought forth good fruit. And the Lord and you're going into so many things that you don't understand, that you're going into breaking the laws and commandments. Because this says in Deuteronomy 21st and 18th chapter, if a man has a stubborn and rebellious son, which would not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him will not hearken, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him out unto the elders of the city, unto the gate of a place. And they shall say unto the elders, this is our son, is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones that he die. So shalt thou put evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Do you want your children to be basically murdered? Because that's what's going to happen. The Lord, they're going to grow to go against the Most High God. The wages of sin is death. So in so many ways, you're bringing your children into a certain death against the Most High God, and teaching them, instead of to be a house that is, not rebellious, you're teaching them this. Isaiah 30, woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, that take counsel but not of me, and that covereth with a cover but not of my spirit, that they may add sin unto sin. So ultimately, we don't want to be that nation that adds sin unto sin. We want to be refrained from that. We want to make sure that we do not have that hard-headedness, because that's a part of Israel. That's why we have to be so ordered with our children, because in Ezekiel 3 and 7 says, but the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me, for all of the house of Israel are impudent and hard-hearted. And that starts from the children being not ordered, set in order, to have that fear, to trust in the Lord, to listen to his commandments. That's what makes the hard heart, and as they grow from an adolescent to an adult, before they start to love to add sin unto sin and be stoned by stones, meaning that they're going to be set for judgment of death, because they're going to rather be comfortable in rebelliousness and idolatry by being stubborn and going against the Most High God, which is the wages of death. And that's if you love your children, how can you say you love your children, but you're preparing them to know death by pain, right? So got to be able to consider these things as the order of your household needs to be established, right? And I yield with that.
Mighty points, man. Mighty points, right? So what we have to do is when we're cultivating our seed, we have to remember this, that it's not about us. It's about the nation, right? The ultimate goal is to what? Get the kingdom. In order to get the kingdom, we have to create generations of righteousness. We have to correct our steps, right? Joshua 24 and verse 15 goes into how we need to choose yet this day which God we're going to serve. Are we going to serve idols like our fathers did, right? Are we going to be like, make the same mistakes as our forefathers and foremothers did? Or are we going to make the correction and make a 180-degree turn and go in the opposite direction? And that's towards the Lord. You understand? Choose ye righteousness instead of unrighteousness, right? So what we have to do is we have to remember not to be selfish, but selfless, and to remember what the goal is. And in order to do that, we have to stop looking at our children as saying, oh, he another me. That's my mini me. No, I don't want you to be like me. When I have children, I don't want my children to be like me. I want them to be selfless. I want them to care about the nation. I want them to sincerely serve the Lord, the Most High God, in deed and in truth. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made. So a lot of times, I think what our people do is they have that unhealthy desire to want their child to be exactly like them, and that's not always good. You understand? Uh, uh, uh. Let's get an actual. We're gonna actually get like 3 examples, right, of that seed cultivation on how we have a forefather and a foremother that's being selfless and exhorting the Most High God and provoking their brothers and sisters unto good works, right? Or encouraging, right, the generations to come to serve the Lord instead of their own belly, right? So what I want to do is go to the classic account of Tobit, right, on how in his last days, Tobit was teaching his son the importance of walking in righteousness, right? Keeping it in the family, right, if you will, and also the importance of alms giving and not being selfish but being selfless, right? So I'm gonna gather a few verses from Tobit chapter 4, right? It says I'm gonna start at verse 5. It says, my son, be mindful of the Lord our God all thy days, and let not thy will be set to sin, right? Or to transgress his commandments. Do uprightly all thy life long, and follow not the ways of unrighteousness. So he's telling his son to keep the commandments. You understand? It says, for if thou deal truly, thy doings shall prosperously succeed to thee, and to all them that live justly. So you have to understand that everything that you put forth your hand to, as long as you prioritize serving the Lord, he's going to take care of you in every aspect, if it be of his will. Not saying that everything that you do, you're going to be successful in doing it, because he might want to teach you a lesson. He might want to show you something. He might want you to work for something. So you're not going to be successful in everything. But what he's saying is, hey, son, you're going to get taken care of the Most High God if you do it. If you do what he tells you to do and you walk in righteousness, right? It says, now therefore, my son, love thy brethren and despise not in thy heart thy brethren, the sons and daughters of thy people, and not taking a wife of them, right? So it's saying, don't despise your brethren, don't have an evil eye, right? Don't do these things. And it's saying what? Get you a wife of our seed line. Reading on, it says, it goes into it. It says what? And not taking a wife of them, for in pride is destruction and much trouble. A lot of our people, they want the prideful of this world, the prosperities of this world. So what do? They go get a heathen, right? Eve does it all the time. Makes marriages and covenants outside of Israel so that she can be prosperous, so she can have the American pie. You understand? It says what? For in pride is destruction and much trouble, and in lewdness is decay and great want. For lewdness is the mother of famine, right? So that covetousness, right? That's what it's going into. Give of thy bread to the hungry, and of thy garments to them that are naked. Right? So be selfless instead of selfish. Don't be self-absorbed, son. Tobit is teaching his son to give alms, right? Don't be extremely covetous, right? And making marriages and covenants outside your God-given nationality, right? And it's saying what? Walk in righteousness. He's teaching and going into alms. It says, and according to thine abundance give alms, and let not thine eye be envious when thou givest alms. And fear not, my son, that we are made poor, for thou hast much wealth, if thou fear God, and depart from all sin and do which is pleasing in his sight. So Tobit is teaching him, right, the importance of giving alms and not to value money in an unhealthy way. You understand? And a lot of this happens in our nation, right? That dollar with their oppressor's face on it, they'll be willing to kill. They will be willing to steal, destroy anything that gets in their way to gain a certain position in this world for that lucre. You understand? And that's the important thing that Tobit is teaching his son, right? And if we jump over to chapter 14 and verse 11, Tobit says, what? Wherefore now, my son, consider what alms doeth, and how righteousness doth deliver. When he had said these things, he gave up the ghost in the bed, being 108 and 50 years old, and he buried him honorably. Right? So we see in that account how beautiful, Tobit taught his son, right? How to be selfless and not selfish, right? Keep the laws of the Most High God, to give in abundance of which you receive. That's what we should be teaching our sons, right? Not taking pictures of our sons in his new in his new first day of school outfit with some money in his hand. This is what happened. This is what Jake does, man. Got his son taking pictures with money, right? Showing off the J's that he put on his feet. But we see how Tobit teaches about alms giving, how to be selfless and not selfish, right? Let's get another account, right? Let's go to Moses, how Moses was exhorting Israel to obedience, right? In Deuteronomy chapter 4, right? Follow me. It says, now therefore hearken, O Israel, right? I'm going to start at verse 1. It says, now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments, which I teach you, for to do them that ye may live, and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of our fathers giveth you. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. So Moses is saying, look, the Lord taught me his law, statutes, and judgments. Now I'm passing them on to you. Now it's important, right? If you want to obtain this land that he tells us that he's promising us, you have to keep the commandments, right? Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear of these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. Only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thine eyes have seen. Right? What is he talking to? He's referring to the covenant of slavery under Pharaoh, right? Make sure you keep the commandments and don't forget the lesson that we learned through this whole covenant of slavery, how we were enslaved to Pharaoh. Don't forget how he took his empire and desolated it, and how he destroyed it, brought plague after plague after plague, 10, I think, to be exact. The frogs. Don't forget the crickets. Don't forget the cows falling down to the ground and with disease and plagues. All right. Don't forget the frogs. Don't forget the measles, the blots, the boils. We serve a terrible God, and his wrath is great. So it's important that we keep the commandments. And this is what Moses was encouraging, right? And you can continue reading throughout that chapter, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna get this last account where Hannah, right, who was barren, you understand, couldn't have children, right, prayed, literally cried unto the Lord in sorrow, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and just paraphrase the account, right, because we kind of got to get going, right? But Hannah, we see in 1 Samuel chapter 2, right? And also chapter 1, not in that order, of course. Chapter 1 first, and then you go to and read chapter 2. You see how Hannah, right? She actually was barren and she prayed for Samuel. And she swore and vowed unto the Most High God, if you give me a son, give me a man child, oh Father, that I'm going to give him to you and he's going to be a servant of you. And we see through that chapter, when she was blessed with Samuel, she did just that. And then in chapter 2, we see how Samuel became a great prophet, right? A great judge. He did what? He served the Most High God. And she brought her son unto the Lord time and time after again, year after year after year. She literally gave her son over to the Most High. She didn't want her son to be like her or to be like his father. She wanted her son to be like the Most High. And that's something that we can learn from, right? Sisters and brothers, right? But I yield there. You got any closing points you want to close this out, Casadia?
All right, King. Yeah, I guess we can close it out here. Let me get this real quick. The book of Psalms, chapter 78. Where I want to start? We can start from the top. It says, "Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Most High, and his strength and his wonderful works that he hath done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that we should make them known to their children, that the children to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in the Most High and not forget the works of the Most High, but keep his commandments, and might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with the Most High God." Right? So like the brother Kazak was bringing up, right? We want to make sure that we teach the next generation to be better than us. We want to make sure that we're not moving in a selfish spirit, but a selfless spirit, right? Because that's the only chance that our children have, right? That's the only chance that our grandchildren have, right? Which is following and adhering to the ways of the Most High God, right? And when we do those things, when we move with that selfless spirit, that spirit of wanting to further the teachings of the Most High to our children and our children's children, what can they expect? It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 54 and verse 13. It says, "And all thy children shall be taught of the Most High, and great shall be the peace of thy children." I don't know about anybody watching, but I'm sure for all the brothers here, we want peace, and this great peace that the Most High God is promising for our children and our children's children forevermore. And with that, I yield. Have any brothers got anything else to bring up?
You got anything, Karadazar?
I'll bring out one little precept there. Okay. Con, well, the brothers are bringing out mighty points, man. This is a blessing. And as men, fathers, as women, as mothers, we got to just make sure that we like the brother brought out some really strong accounts. And that's ultimately the point of what we need to focus on as parents, as raising up, generation after generation. Just going to go into the book of 1 Kings 2:1. It says, "Now the days of David drew nigh that he should die, and he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be thou strong therefore, and show thyself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments, and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou may prosper in all that thou doest, and whatsoever thou turnest thyself." That's basically what you got to make sure we do, because we're not going to be here forever, but you always want your children to understand that's a way of being strong in this land that is perverse, around these perverse nations, that it's going to keep you strong in the strength and the spirit of the Lord, and an obedient child to your earthly father, and an obedient child to your heavenly father, right? Because ultimately this is how we are as parents. I'm gonna deal with this. Psalms 51:13. As parents, this is kind of how we got to look at our kids, and even even our nieces and our nephews. We have a responsibility to lead the sheep, to teach the children, to teach each other, because we're all children of the Most High, right? So it says, "Then will I teach transgressors thy ways, and all sinners shall be converted unto thee." So that's the point we got to make sure that we do as parents. We want to make sure that we offer our children up to the Most High by teaching them the ways, the commandments, and also, make sure that if they transgress, that we can change those behaviors and give them back unto the Most High God, right? And that's what I feel a loving parent should operate as biblically through the scriptures. And I'll yield with that. Hey, Shalom.
Shalom, Israel.
Shalom.